is a very valid reason as to one of the reasons the percentages have been impacted in 2020 and 2021, which is when the first wave of COVID-19 hit, which was in March last year, we basically had to shut all services down, and a lot of those included cancer screening. So that had a huge impact on the percentage figures. But we are behind, and we need to catch up. And I know that one of the priorities of Manx Care is to try and bring in additional resource. In between the lockdowns, we did actually bring in additional resource. We put on extra clinics to try and bring the waiting list down. But unfortunately, again, with the other lockdowns, they have risen again and they have breached the 2-week wait. So we need to actually work to ensure that we can actually get through it.
Well, you mentioned there extra clinics after lockdown last time. Now that we are out of lockdown again, what's being done to bring this down?
Yeah, we were also looking again, or Manx Care, I should say, in the new world, is looking at what they can do around extra clinics, extra resource in there, if we can get support from the UK even. But we have to remember the UK has their own issues as well, particularly around their lists, which have also grown. But we also need to look longer term because demand is rising again. One of the things that will be seen from the answer there is that the total number of referrals went up by nearly 100 in between 2019 and 2020. So there is demand rising across some of the services, particularly around breast care, where again it was over 100 that went up in the 1 year period from the answer. So we need to look at what we can do to try and make sure that the waits are as short as possible, and we try and keep to that 2-week wait as far as we can.
You mentioned there breast care. That is the area that currently has the lowest percentage of patients being seen within that 2-week window. There's been so much investment here. Lots of the charities have done work to ensure that it's well equipped up at Nobles for breast care. Should that area not be performing better? Well,
it was also one of the areas most impacted by COVID because we had staff shielding. We have to remember that we have a limited pool of staff here on Ireland. The UK had its own issues that it had to deal with, and we ended up with staff who were in the vulnerable category who needed to shield. So that caused quite a big impact on that service. We have been doing additional clinics again around the breast care to try and bring it back, but that is going to be over time. So the key now will be driving forward to ensure that we can try and get things back on track. And that's exactly the same in the UK as well.
And another area that's seen a big drop, the colorectal cancers, down from 86.4% to 60.4%. A lot of these cancers, they can be ones that don't show symptoms early doors. So it is one that people need to be seen quickly, is it not? Is that another area that is going to need a real focus to get that percentage back up?
It's across all of the areas. There is a couple where, as you will see, it actually went the other way. Dermatology, for instance, the weight went from 83.1%, 92.2% was seen within the target time, and head and neck barely moved, and in fact there was a slight increase in lung as well. But we need to look across all the specialities rather than picking out one particular speciality. We need to look across all the specialities and try and tackle it as a whole.
Well, you mentioned there the increase in people being seen within that 14-day period in dermatology. What's been done differently there that they seem to have booked this trend?
Well, there were certain things with dermatology that could continue during the COVID outbreak that couldn't in other specialities. So that is where you will start seeing some of the differences. Breast was, like I say, particularly impacted during COVID, and also because it was impacted from our support network in the UK, was impacted by the same thing. And that's what we have to remember. There's been stress and strains not just on what's being done over here, but also our support network in the UK that backs up these services.
Now that we have come out of lockdown, it's easier to get in and out of the hospital. GPs are seeing patients in person more again. Is there a surge in demand now in people coming forward for cancer treatment?
Well, there wasn't. People have still been being referred over the COVID period. GPs haven't stopped referrals in. They've been continuing even remotely to see patients. And we have to remember that where there was concerns, GPs continued to see people face to face. It didn't all suddenly grind to a halt. What's important now is that backlog of referrals that is built up is tackled, and we try and get the lists down. And the department will work with Manx Care to ensure that they can do what they can to do so.